Alright lads, this is Greg here, and today I'm going to show you how to make the Another Planet synth. Now before we begin, keep in mind please that I'm not a tutorials person, so I'm just going to try to explain what I'm doing and what I know as much as I can to you. And I also know that the microphone quality is bad, but that's not what we're here for today. Now let me show you the patch. So that's the sound we're going to make today. I actually don't have the MIDI of that anymore, but I do have the patch, and it sounds like this. So if you're a DMB head, you can already tell that's a Reese. So let's make some Reese's today. So you need to pop a massive open. You can actually use anything as long as you can replicate the exact same parameters of what I'm doing, but I do recommend massive because it has a nice organic sound to things when you use post-processing here. So yeah, so before we begin, I need to explain something to you about saws. I don't know where you're coming from, but you know, the more trend following and like young all of these producers are, they breed everything that they believe in forums. And there's this common misconception that if you have a stack of saw layers, you're automatically going to have a decent saw line. Like all of these kids do this thing where they have like 5 slightly different saws, they detune them a bit, they compress them into a group and then send it to master, and they think they've done well just because the people on the forums told them that, oh, if you make stacks it's going to sound nice. But if they upload them to SoundCloud where there's actual compression that's been introduced, what the listener hears is actually 50% white noise and some saws in there. So it's that's exactly what we're going to contradict today with this technique, because the main fundamental behind this sound, you think it's a complicated saw sound, but it's literally nothing more than a saw and some post-processing. So we're gonna, well, give me a saw then. That's not a saw. Important to remember, this is a saw. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna get it off of the perfect pitch over there. I think Rob does this thing. I mean, in the case of some of his leads, I think most of them are not perfectly tuned to give it an organic feeling. Well, I mean, I do it to mine anyway, and there's some result in there, so I recommend you do it. And now, time to head over to voicing. In voicing over here, now you're saying that this sounds like very complicated, must give it like 16 voices. Actually does not help. See, the more voices you have, the more phasing gets introduced. You need to have the least amount of voices as possible to have a clear sound. You can post-process into something that still sounds clear to some extent. If I try to post-process something with 16 voices and a ton of phasing and chorus, it's not going to work too nicely. So since you cannot exactly have unisono with one voice, just try 2, and still doesn't sound too good though. Now here's the thing, we're going to make a respace out of this, and the way we're going to do that is, the way a respace works is that you get 2 waves and they somehow mathematically phase each other nicely in a way that it sounds very pleasing to the ear, and that's the respace. That's what DMB overused in the previous 2 decades or something like that. So just give them like half a note of unisono, and it's going to sound very nice. That's how you become TC and Dillinger. So you have this, and honestly not much else to do. You can make this sound monophonic and give it some portamento. It's going to make it sound even nicer. You can attempt some vibrato, but be careful with this thing. This is purely for texture, by the way. Next up, you have to come over here to EQ and do a bit of EQing. I mean, I have the screenshots of my settings over here, so I'm copying them too. So feel free to copy them. We need to subtract the frequency over here. it actually does matter what you subtract here. As I keep saying, your patch is going to sound different from this. It's going to have the same fundamentals, have the same concept, but it's just going to be a slightly different iteration. Don't let that like discourage you. It's still going to be the same sound. Just, I mean, you can tweak it further than this tutorial. Always remember this. When I say that sound is done, only I'm done with the tutorial. You still need to do something with it if you want it to be better. So in this case, we are killing the high end. And the reason for that is because we're going to bring it back with distortion later. Now, we are done in the massive patch now. And we're going to introduce some chorus into the picture, which is over here. And there's some specific settings. So see, in chorus there are two delays. The first delay I would bring down to like 400 because there's actually frequency content there. And it sounds nice if you delay that too. Besides that, I have a pretty nice ratio in this modulation window over here, which you should just copy. It's like just a very nice spot for good chorus sounds. Should be this, yes, it's this. And Ableton has this thing with its plugins that it can produce feedback, so about 60% should do. Really, it's a nice setting. It's not bad now. So anyway, let's move on. We have everything. Yes. I just need to check something. Anyway, we need an OTT over here, and actually going to put it before the chorus. So let me find it for you. There you go. So in here we have like 3 bands, right? You might be thinking that I'm doing something like in an incorrect order. Honestly, it doesn't matter which order you do it in, but I forgot that it's before the chorus. It doesn't matter, you can just come back here and do it. So we have 3 bands here. Now there's this thing which I'm going to do, is that I'm going to go down and tell it that the low band starts to the bottom from 217 Hertz, which is a pretty nice range. And what we're going to do is that we're going to remove it. Since it's a lead, we don't need the low end, and we especially don't need the low end fundamental for this thing. Next up, we're going to boost the mids about like by 9 decibels or something like that. And we're going to tell OTT that the high band starts from 1.47 or something like that. That's a nice range, and we're going to keep it like that. The reason why it's like this is very simple. It's because since this is a multi-band compressor, not like a parametric EQ or something like that. In a parametric equalizer like EQ8 or the FL parametric EQ2, is the equalization that the bands, they're smooth. In this case, because it's like a straight up band, it's not as smooth. So you can introduce kind of like a staircase effect in the frequency spectrum, and it's going to have some organic effects actually if you do it well. So this is one of those examples when you do it nicely. Also, we're going to like bring the time to 10%, so we're going to have the kind of like a brick wall effect here. Okay, so that sounds like a cheesy synth already, so we're heading in the right direction. Next up, we're going to add the amp. Now this amp is up here, and it's going to give us some distortion, and this is what we're going to use to bring the high end back. So choose the boost and crunch preset and change it to the following. Out of all of these, we actually need the blues one, and the blues one is one of the nicer ones for basses and leads, if you ask me. Now, in the case of gain, here gain plays quite a role, because if it's high, there's more of that screechy distortion you don't want. So I recommend putting it to something like 3.17. It's a good range. We don't need bass, so we can kill the bass. And I actually subtracted a bit of the middle in my original patch, so we're just gonna do that here too. Treble and presence. Now, it's a bit of a cool thing that we have this here. It's a very nice thing to have. Treble and presence, 2 different things. Now, what are they, you might ask? In the case of treble, since you see that there's bass, middle, and treble, it works kind of like a multiband EQ. So in this case, if you increase treble, it's just gonna get the original high end, bring it up, and have it reach a certain threshold where it starts distorting. But in the case of presence, you actually do not have this high end, which you originally had, but you create distortion in relation to the low end. And it kind of combines this high end distortion with the original sound. So basically, very basically, if you choose treble, you get your original high end back with some more organic effects. And if you choose presence, you can choose not to have your original high end and have a new high end based off of the distortion created by the low end. In this case, we, however, are not going to use presence as much as of how cool of an effect it is. We're going to just use treble at like 3.65 or something like that. You can add presence if you want. Actually, it's healthy to have that like 2 or something in this patch, but originally I didn't have any of that in there. So that's how this patch looks like. Increase that volume. Now, we are going to put a brick wall compressor at the very end. You can find this preset at this this tab over here, the compressor tab. Now we're technically kind of finished, and this is the part where your custom settings come in. So when I say this is really pretty usable, but my original one sounds like this. As you can see, I have some EQ settings over here. Again, that's just to make it fit to what another planet sounds like, but I can somewhat try to replicate it for you real quick to show you what it is like to have these settings. No promises that it's going to be accurate, though. I mean, I'm looking at a screenshot of the original. It's basically, again, trial and error, and this is the result. This band over here. So basically you need to nerf it like something like in the 10 kilohertz area and then bring it all the way back here. That's the wrong sound. And then I had some more correction in the this area. Let me there you go. So there's some nice stuff over here at about 2 to 3 kilohertz. I need to give this a bit of a boost because this still is kind of like the low-end transient area. Here it gives it some kind of like a noisy slosh effect. I guess if you put your hand to your ear and you hear this feedback from the well, that's what you get here. And I boosted more high end over here. Anyway, it just sounds crisp and nice now. And that's kind of about it. Past this point is where your settings come in. If you want to change this in any way, feel free to change it. And well, I guess that's all I had to teach to you for now. I hope you learned something today, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do any more tutorials, but this was a fun run. So yeah, that's about it. See you guys.